Hello everyone. Good morning, good evening. I hope you all are doing well. My name is Pawan Best and I am a software consultant at Noldes Incorporation focusing on Rust programming language from last 2 years. So today I am presenting a session on rundown of async await. Okay, so as we all know, the async await syntax hits stable release as a part of 1.39.0 release. So let's understand this stabilized feature in this session and to make our code base asynchronous with zero cost futures. Okay, so let's talk about Noldes first. So Noldes is a team of passionate technologists with a product mindset who work along with businesses to deliver solution at the speed of competitive advantage. Our main capabilities are around reactive products, IoT, microservices and API, data science, data engineering and DevOps. We also have strategic partnerships with Databricks, Lightbend, Confluent, Snowflake, and many more to deliver more value to clients. So this would be our today's agenda. So first we'll talk about asynchronous programming, then alternatives for handling concurrent programming. Then we'll have a quick introduction and quick demonstration for async await. Then we'll understand internals and workflow of futures. Then we'll compare Rust with Golang. After that, we'll understand Rust futures, the internal execution of Rust future, and then we'll understand the reactor and executor pattern. And at the last, we'll understand the internal execution of Rust future with the help of quick demonstration. So let's get started with the first topic. What is asynchronous programming? So asynchronous programming is a concept which allows multiple things to do at the same time. Okay, so in a nutshell, asynchronous programming lets us run multiple tasks at the same time on a single OS thread. So it means multiple scenarios can be handled at the same time, because when they are waiting for a response, then they are just idle, right? So we can let the other tasks keep working on their computation and whatever they are meant to. For example, if we talk about the real life scenario, you can open a large file or query a database, but your program will continue processing each line afterwards without waiting for the previous call to complete. Okay, so it includes three terms: parallel, concurrent and asynchronous. So let's talk about them first. So parallelism is about dealing a lot of things at the same time, but it can be achieved only on multi-cores. The next term is concurrent. So concurrency is about dealing with lot of things at the same time. So if we compare both the terms, so concurrency is basically the composition of independently executing processes, while parallelism is the simultaneous execution of possibly related computations. So if we talk about more on it, concurrency is basically about dealing with lot of things at once, whereas parallelism is about doing lot of things at once. So the point that makes difference between both the statement is one is for dealing and other is for doing. So the asynchronous programming, so the another term is asynchronous. So asynchrony is used to present the impression of concurrent or parallel tasking. So asynchronous programming just help us to achieve concurrency, and in a multi-threaded environment it is a way to achieve parallelism as well. So before diving into the Rust future and async await concept, let's first talk about the alternatives. So alternatives for handling concurrent programming. So there are two alternatives. We have a thread provided by the operating system called OS thread or native thread, and another one is green threads. So OS thread. So one way to accomplishing concurrent programming is letting the OS take care of everything for us. We do this by simply spawning a new thread for each task we want to accomplish, and write code like we normally would, right? So here in the OS thread, the runtime we use to handle concurrency for us is the operating system itself. So the operating system will handle all the tasks. So what are the advantages of OS threads? So they are simple, easy to use, and here context switching between the switching between tasks is reasonably fast, and you get parallelism for free here. As you know, here OS spawns new thread for each new task, right? So there are some cons as well. So OS threads come with large stack. If you have many tasks or many scenarios, you can say, waiting simultaneously, you will run out of memory pretty fast, and there are a lot of syscalls involved here. This can be pretty costly when the number of tasks are high. And the last point I have for the in the drawback section of OS thread are, the OS has many things to handle. It might not switch back to your thread as fast as you would wish. Now let's move to the green threads. Green threads are user level threads rather than kernel level threads. So, and green threads includes context switching as well. Basically, green threads use the same mechanism as OS thread, so which are creating a thread for each stack, setting up a stack, saving the CPU state, and jumping from one task, or you can say thread, to another by doing a context switch. So so Rust had green threads once, but they were removed before it hit 1.0 release. So we have some pros and cons for green threads as well. So the advantages are, they are lightweight. Each stack only get a little memory to start with, so you can have hundred of thousands of green threads running without any issues. So here context switching is very fast. The cons of green threads are, they are not zero cost abstraction. Rust had green threads early on, and this was one of the reason they were removed, because they are not zero cost. It is because it was decided that Rust shouldn't have runtime, right? Or little as possible. But if you have green thread, you need a quite significant runtime to manage those, like Golang does for example. That's a overhead here, and green thread maintain a separate stack for each green thread. I think we could consider green thread a zero cost abstraction, in the sense that we couldn't write an implementation by hand which would perform better. However, the problem was, even if we didn't want to use green threads, we would still have had a runtime in a binary. That makes them non-zero cost abstraction. Like we are paying for what we are not using. That's why they are non-zero cost. Now let's move to another topic, async await. So this is the quick introduction for async await. So async await is a built-in tool for Rust programming for writing asynchronous function, and they are a special piece of Rust syntax that make it possible to yield control of current thread rather than blocking and then allowing other code to make progress while waiting on an operation to complete. So here async is, it transforms a block of code into a state machine that implements a trait called future. So here another term is await. So it is a mechanism to run a future, and it asynchronously wait for future to complete. So when .await is called on future, it will attempt to run it to completion. If future is blocked, it will yield control of the current thread, and when more progress can be made, the future will be picked by the executor and will resume, and allowing the .await to resolve. So let's talk more about async. So as we already talked about it, async transforms a block of code into a state machine that implements a trait called future. So there are two ways to use async. So the first one is async function, and the second one is async block. So each return a future that they both returns a value that implements the future trait. Let me show you example. So as you can see here we have two scenarios. In the first one, we are using async as a keyword, and in the second we are using async as a block. So for keyword, we can directly use async before the fun keyword to make our function asynchronous. And if we don't want to make a whole function asynchronous, like if we only want to make a specific block asynchronous, so we can directly use async block inside a function. But in both the cases, so the second scenario, as you can see here, where we are using async block, it will also return a value that implements a future, right? Okay, so moving ahead, so this is dot await, so it asynchronously wait for future to complete. So for in the await section as well, we have two options, like if we want to use async inside the async function or inside the async block. Similarly, inside the async block we can directly use dot await function, and for async method as well. Now let's have a quick demonstration for async await. Okay, so this is the program where we'll understand the asynchronous concept by using async and dot await. So here we have 5 async functions: func1, func2, func3, func4 and compute, and inside like these async functions we have used dot await method, right? So let's understand the function one first. So here I have used the sleep method just to make or provided a duration of 3 seconds. So here I am just making this function called just holding this function for 3 seconds and using dot await method. So what dot await will do is, like, it will not block the thread, it will allow other thread or other functions to execute, right? So similarly, function 2 for 2 seconds, I have blocked this for 2 seconds, and function 3 for 1 second, and just provided two println statements for function 4, like function 4 started and function 4 ended. And in the compute method, so here I have used join macro, which polls multiple futures simultaneously, and it returns a tuple of all results once completed, right? So here I have called all the 4 functions 1, 2, 3 and 4, and if they all are completed, then just it will print a line execution successfully completed. And just to run the future, we have to use block on method here. So block on run, it runs a future to completion on the current thread. So we just called compute method here. So if we let me show you by running this program. So as you can see here, the implementation is still going on, the execution, sorry. So let's try to understand what it prints the output. First we have called the function 1, so the control comes to the function 1, so it printed the function 1 started, then function 1 goes to sleep for 3 seconds, then so as you can see, this function goes to sleep for 3 seconds, then this is a blocking, all right. But we are here we have used dot await, so it will not the thread, it will allow other functions to execute. So similarly, it prints the function 2 started, function 2 goes to sleep for 3 seconds, and similarly function 3 goes to sleep for a second. After that, when function 4 executed, then we haven't blocked anything inside the function 4, so it just printed the function 4 ended, and if this function 4 ended, the control again goes to the function 3, because it was blocked only for 1 second. So similarly, function 3 ended, function 2 ended, and function 1 ended. Like after every function completed, the control comes to the compute function again, and it prints execution successfully completed. So here I just try to mimic the execution of future, like how asynchronous programming works. So let's get back to the slides again. Now let's understand some internals and workflow. So as you can see in the diagram, at the very top level we have syntax and type. So in the syntax we have async await and type as a future. After that we have runtime, then we have kernel, abstraction, and at the end kernel. So let's understand it in low level. If I talk about kernel first, then kernel already has concept concurrent and parallelism, right, implemented already, so through threads and other concepts. However, they are quite expensive, which means there is just a finite amount of resources available, and dealing with this problem on OS level adds a whole new level of complexity. So that's why we need to implement or handle our internal async flow on program level, right, with the help. So we are using this with the help of async await. So to implement this, we need a runtime which can handle our async code and also be able to communicate with kernel. So here is our program at the top level, and between our program and the kernel we have a runtime here. So if we talk about the workflow, if we mark a method as async, then we can either wait for them to finish or continue with the rest of the work, and later on check if if they finished, then we just use the output, right? So once we have done with the code, we need a runtime which take the async part of our code and run it. And runtime also need to take processes from the queue and hand it over to the OS, because this is the place where the actual execution happens. So when the OS done with the processing, it will notify the runtime, and then runtime set the state inside the async type and hand it back to the program workflow, right? So now let's compare Rust with Golang in terms of syntax, type, and runtime, like how they both are different with each other. So as we all can see in the picture, Go has a Go routines instead of futures. We'll talk more about future in coming slides. And instead of async await, we simply have Go methods, right? In the Golang, we simply write Go methods. And for runtime, Go has its own Go runtime, but the Rust language team has not included any runtime because they want to be small as possible, right? So that's why we have to use external traits provided by the runtime. Here it is mentioned Tokio, but as of now, Rust STD is also provided by the Rust programming. So instead of building our language on top of our runtime, we build our runtime on top of our language by using these crates. It means if we need to do async step, we can opt onto into one of the async system. If we don't pay the cost. That's why Rust itself doesn't come with a runtime. So as of now, in my viewpoint, the most popular crate for providing runtime is Tokio, because Tokio has been used by multiple applications at the time, and Tokio uses Mu internally as its event queue. So now let's quickly talk about future first, then we'll proceed with some internal portions. So basically, future is a representation of some operation which will complete in future, and they are zero and futures are zero cost. So future is a concept of an object which is a proxy for another value that may not be ready yet. So future is basically a trait in Rust. The future trait is at the center of asynchronous programming, and we can say it is a representation of some operation that we already covered, which will complete in future, right? Now what is zero cost then? So Rust future are purely based on pole model, right? Pole model makes them zero cost. So what is pole model then? So as in other languages, invoking an async function immediately create a future and schedule it for execution, and awaiting the future isn't necessary for it to execute. But in Rust, invoking an async function doesn't do any scheduling, and here the main thing we'll notice is that future feels lazy. They won't do anything until we await them inside the async block, right? As we already have seen, like we have used async function, and inside that we have used await, right? So in a nutshell, what we don't use, we don't pay for. Okay, so after awaiting the future, then the future executor come into the picture, and we'll talk about more we talk about executor more in coming slides. So to be more precise, pole based approach has three phases. The first one is pole phase, the second one is wait phase, and the third one is wake phase. So pole phase so what is pole phase? A future is polled, which result in the task progressing until a point where it can no longer make progress. We often refer to the part of runtime which polls a future as an executor, right? What is wait phase then? And wait phase is an event source, most often referred as reactor. It registers that a future is waiting for an event to happen and make sure that it will wake the future when that event is ready. This is the case we register for a wake function, and inside the wake phase, so this is the event when future wakes up. It's now up to the executor which polled the future in poll phase and schedule the future to be polled again and make further progress until it completes or reaches to a new point where it cannot make further progress, and the cycle repeats. Okay, so this is a basic implementation of the future. So if we talk about the snippet I have posted, so let's quickly understand this first. Here we have future trait which has output as type and poll function. This poll function is a major part of the future. It actually starts the flow of asynchronous execution. Like if the future completes, it return poll ready, the enum, right? And if the future is not able to complete or make progress, it return poll pending and arranges for wake function, and this function to be called when future is ready to make progress. So basically the role of wake function here is to tell the executor which future are ready to be polled, and without it the executor would not be able to get the information about which future could make progress, and then executor would have to poll all the future constantly. Right, okay, so we have got the understanding of future by using the simple structure. Now let's talk about the actual or real implementation of the future. So there are two changes that you will notice in the snippet as compared to the previous one. So the first change you will notice here is the self type is no longer mutable reference of self but has changed to pin, which is a mutable reference of self, right? As this session is related to the future only, so we'll not go deep on pinning side, but for now pinning allows us to create future that are immovable, and immovable objects can store pointers between their fields, and it is necessary to enable async await. Okay, so now the second change is on wake side. Okay, so wake side, this is a function pointer, so wake function has changed to mutable reference of context, right? In the simple future we have used a call to function pointer to tell the future executor that future in question should be polled. However, since function pointer is just a function point, that function is just a function pointer, it cannot store any data about which future called wake, right? So with the help of context here, as we have used the context here, we can store the detail of each future who called wake function, so that leads to get the detail of the future that need to be polled. So these information are pretty straightforward from the official documentation. So to more about it, you can directly refer to the official documentation. So now let's talk about the internal execution. So we have basically two options here. The first one is thread based and second one is event driven architecture. But thread based is limiting because of the limited physical resources. So event driven is the best approach here. Like we have the best option here to use the event driven, right? So in this approach, what we'll do is like it will register incoming future request and save function pointer to the async function handler. It then trigger an event in the kernel to basically execute the operation. So once the IO operation is done, we'll call the pointer and execute the async method with the result of the kernel. So in the diagram, you can see that at the top level, we have async await, right? Please don't go with each side here, as I have taken this image from the Google and it talks about some more aspects, but here we'll only talk about async await, and then the runtime we have used, right? As you can see here, firstly we have async await and the type as future, and inside the runtime it shows that about the Tokio, because Tokio is very popular create to provide runtime for REST programming language, and inside this we have reactor and executor. Like the work of executor we already discussed, like to poll the future, and reactor is just to notify the executor like the future is ready to be polled. And internally Tokio uses Mio, and after, so this is all the user land, and inside the kernel we have kernel IO task, and at the bottom layer which is CPU, we have multi-threading, hyper-threading and multiprocessors. Now let's talk about the executor and reactor. So an executor is essentially a scheduler. It is responsible for actually executing the futures that got spawned as task onto it. However, if the future can't make progress, it needs to ensure that executor is getting notified again, right? This happen via waker. The piece actually noticing that task can make progress again and calling the waker is the job of reactor. Basically, this is the reactor. So basically reactor notifies if data is coming over the network or operations are in progress, and executor take the data and execute the async function which is future with it, right? Okay, so let's understand the internal execution of future with the help of an example. So yeah, so this is a program. So I have used this program. So actually this is not my program, and I have provided a link in the reference section, so you can directly you know have a look at the program by using that link. So let's try to understand what we are trying to do here is like, so first of all we have provided a new thread local storage by using a thread local macro here. Inside this we have used provided a notify parameter which is a type of ref cell, and ref cell is a mutable memory location with dynamically checked borrow rules. So and like to provide the value it to ref cell or notify here is we have initializes it by a new keyword and provided a default value true, right? So now we in the second line we have a structure called context, and this context has a waker, and waker is a type again of waker. So we already have a structure called waker, and inside the implementation of waker we have a wake function which will what will do is like which will update the value by mutably borrowing the value of notify. And inside the context implementation of context we have two methods or functions, from waker and waker. The role of from waker is just to provide the context, and the role of waker is just to provide the waker. So it will return, as you can see here we are returning self.waker. Okay, so now we have enum poll and ready, and we just used basic implementation of future here, a type output of type and a poll function. Inside this we have mutable reference of self and a reference of context. It will return poll, and poll is again ready or pending. Now we have a future or custom future with the name structure with the name future progress. We have used a derived default here. So what will it will do is like it will initializes the value of the of the attributes of the future with a default value. So like if we call the default function now, then the value of progress will be initialized with 0. Now we have implemented future for our future progress. We have our output as type, and in the poll function we just printed added a println command like checking whether the future is ready to poll or not. So what we're trying to do here is like we are checking the value of our progress, like is it 100 or not. We initializes it for with 0 because we already used the default derived default here. And if not, if the value of progress is not 100, then it will go to the default section, and inside the default section we are trying to increase the value by 20 and calling the wake function by using the context and returning the poll pending. Poll pending means the future is not ready to poll. And we have run function accept a future, which is and future is again type of future. So inside this what we are trying to do is like we are looping, and so this function will loop until it gets notified that future is ready to be polled again or not. So we have used a loop here. So here we are using, so with the help of notify with, we just provided a is ready value, and it is initialized with by default true at the very first line, as you can see here. So we are checking like is ready by immutably borrowing it, like our future is ready. So as our value is true, then our control will go inside this if block, and we are then mutably borrowing. By mutably borrowing it, we are what we are doing here is we are making it to false, like by assuming like we consumed a future, right? So in the next line what we are trying to do here is by we are getting the context using the from waker by providing a waker here. So as we got the context here, so with the help of context we are calling the poll function by so this is a future which we have attribute of our run method. So with the help of future we are calling poll function and providing the context, right? And if this function returns few poll ready, then we'll print finally our future is completed and will return the value. If not, it will again loops until we get the future is ready or not. And then we have main function. So inside the main function what we are trying to do here is we are initializing a structure with the default values. So then we are calling the run method by providing a future type which is my future progress, right? And printing like the output of run method by here, and is like we are assuming this is the 100%. If our future gets ready to poll, then it will return 100 and 100% future is completed. So this is what we are trying to do. So if we run the program, so let's assume we initializes the value of our progress with 0, as you can see here, right? We'll pass it to the run method, so as our value is 0. So right, so it will come here. So initially our value is true, so it will make it false. We will get the context. We'll call the poll function, and inside the poll function we will check like if value is 100 or not. If it's not 100, because initially our value will be 0, right? So our control will go to the default section. It will increment the value by 20 and call the wake function. And inside the wake function what we are trying to do is like we are again changing a value is ready by mutably borrowing it to true, because we'll loop it again. Then our again our value is true. We'll again go, our control will again go inside this if block. Then we'll again make it false, getting the context, calling the poll function. Then similarly we'll get 20 here. Similarly we after incrementing 20 to 40, 60, 80, 100, if a value comes to 100, the progress value comes to 100, then it will return poll ready, right? If we'll get poll ready, then this statement will execute it. Like if like this statement will be satisfied then, because we will get the poll ready from the poll function, and using iflet we are trying to validate if it's poll ready or not. If it's ready, then our function will print finally our future is ready, future is completed, and return the value. So now let's try to print this. As you can see here, first of all our value was 0, right? Then our value was 20, then 40, 60, 80, 100, and if our value comes to 100, then it returns poll ready, right? And then if it's poll ready, then it prints finally our future is completed, and at the end inside the main method 100% future is completed. So this is the internal execution. Like this is how synchronous programming works internally with the help of futures. So this is the internal execution of future, but this is the basic one. I tried actually I used the basic future implementation just to explain it in a more better way, because the standard or the latest implementation uses the pinning and the mutable reference of context. So that's why I used this basic one just to explain it. So now let's get back to the slides. So that's all about this session. So if you have any queries, so you can contact me directly. I have provided my contact details at the end of the this session. So yeah, so before signing off, we have introduced a Rust Times. So Rust Times is a bi-weekly newsletter. So you can explore the bi-weekly roundup of latest Rust articles, jobs, events, and releases by subscribing this newsletter. Okay, and if you want to know the expertise on Rust, so you can directly go to our website by clicking on this link, and this slides talk about only Rust. Like Rust is builds reliable and efficient softwares, and Rust is a multi-paradigm system programming language that can provide better memory safety while maintaining high performance. So these are my references here. So if you want to get more understanding of that code that I have used, you can go to these links and you can understand the code in more better way. So that's it for this session. You can contact me with these my contact details. Thank you so much.